over time, I have had several different clients I've worked with whose occupation is being a therapist, counselor. And there's a repeat conversation and sentiment that has come up in those dynamics. When I have somebody coming to see me for their own therapy and they tell me that they themselves are a therapist, there's a follow up question that I'm asked, which is, how comfortable are you working with me knowing that I'm a therapist? And my answer to that question I want to share with you, which is, I am just as comfortable working with you knowing that you're a therapist as I am working with any one of the other individual people that I work with or have worked with, right? And then I give more of an explanation to be able to kind of satisfy that, because the reason therapists are asking that question is there's a I don't know how I want to say this, almost like an internal stigma, maybe like impacts of that comes up, and a notion that there's a like kind of sentiment from a therapist in response to discovering that a client that they're working with is also a therapist. Like that's the energy that's behind this person asking this question of, is it a problem to you to work with me? Is it off-putting to you? Does it make you uncomfortable knowing that I'm a therapist? Because a lot of people do kind of share that sentiment. So, how I answer that question is, I am just as comfortable working with you, knowing that you're a therapist, as I am with working with any number of the other individuals that I've worked with. That doesn't, knowing that you're a therapist doesn't impact my level of comfort and capability and openness to working with you through your own therapeutic journey. You can go through the technical training, have the credentialing, the practice experience, and be a beautiful, effective healer yourself. And that doesn't mean that you are capable of being your own therapist. That's just not how this works. And I've talked about this theme in many of my videos at this point, but certainly in the survival skill to superpower of my own personal journey. Of I've been to therapy before, and that says nothing about what a confident, capable healer that I am, right? Or I guess if it does say something about it, maybe it says some good things about it that I've been able to walk that walk. I guess I'll say, and I have experience of what that feels like, of sitting in some of the vulnerability and being on the receiving side of it, um, to further your own healing journey always. What's the word I want to say here? Spills out and shines, the light of that brightness shines on to other people and warms their cheeks, right? So the best things that you can do for yourself and getting that healing that you deserve, in some ways, I do think it can positively impact your own practice. But it certainly doesn't mean that you deciding to go to therapy for yourself is any type of reflection of your own professional capabilities in your role as a therapist. So, the thing to understand here is this person can have all the technical skills, language, modality experience to be able to at times maybe like recognize certain things that I'm doing in the therapeutic process. However, and I think that's where people get there's where that sentiment rises of the concern with, are you going to be comfortable working with me? It's because there is a bit of internalized stigma with mental health and therapists going to seek their own therapy that I think we're evolving through and is getting much better than it used to be. But what I said to her is, I think when she said, I have come across other people who are turned off by and uncomfortable with providing therapy to other therapists. And I said, yes, absolutely. I have also noted that in this industry and seen that happen repeatedly and directly, I'd say. And I don't think you need to worry about that here with me. And part of the understanding is, like I said, when you're living your own story and you're inside of that, you can't have that ability to apply those kind of things when you yourself are inside of that dissonance. And again, that's not a deficit, that's nature, right? That's expected. And so come in and get that healing work, you deserve it. And to speak more about the discomfort that was kind of openly shared with her in the past from other people, or the sentiments of, ooh, not a good thing to have to provide therapy to another therapist, is what I make of that is that there is vulnerability there. This person is also a therapist. They're trained in similar ways. Are they going to be judging how good of a therapist I am? Am I going to feel some of my own insecurities rise up here? Is there something about that dynamic that's going to feel almost like some sense of confrontation to me? And I said, you don't have to worry about that here. So while I have, like I said, validated to her that I've also witnessed that type of sentiment and heard that type of language being shared in response to discomfort and a resistance, if you will, or leaning away from wanting to provide therapy to another therapist. The vulnerability there, I believe, comes from a feeling of like, am I being exposed here, and will I be judged? And insecurity. It's really insecurity and lacking that kind of confidence there. Am I good enough? I think it comes back to, and this is not in any way meant to call you out. I know there are a lot of therapists who I think watch some of these videos. This is to normalize and to support you. You're not alone. I think it's normal to have that little sentiment rise up of like, is this person? So I'm not saying that I don't have a little bit of that feeling or that I haven't had that in the past. I just recognize what that is, and I lean back into understanding this is a human. This is a person who's deserving of therapy, and I'm a wonderful healer, and what I bring to the table, this person deserves. So it's building yourself up and checking that insecurity, handling it the way it needs to be addressed so that you're not accidentally perpetuating some stigma. Because the people that, when I've seen this done, it's never, I trust fully that it's never been with malignant intention. And it really is just coming from that space of vulnerability. Ooh, that's making me feel insecure about having somebody shadow my sessions. And I say shadow, but because I'm drawing a parallel to this notion of therapist feeling uncomfortable providing that therapy to another therapist, to my experience in as a clinical supervisor for 10 years, where when I was training new therapists, I really felt that it was an integral, important, just invaluable part of that training to have them shadow several sessions with several different therapists. So you can take little golden nuggets like, oh, I love what that person did there. I'm going to incorporate that into my style. I like what this one did in this way. I'm going to incorporate that. That part's not my style. I think I'll be mindful of not doing that because I didn't love how that felt for me. And this is not about judgment. This is about the wealth and mm, helping each other rise up. And I'll say that in switching over jobs at one point when I had already had 9+ years of experience, and it had been a long time since I've shadowed anybody. But then I went to a different organization and had to go through, of course, that training process, and then shadowed other people for the first time in a really long time, and noted, okay, I'm leveling up again by observing these other counterparts, right? These other colleagues of mine. And nothing in that was diminishing or detracting from anybody involved in that scenario. Everyone can lift at the same time, right? And while I was working on planning out those shadowing schedules for new therapists, new employees, it was more difficult than I wanted it to be because of that insecurity and that resistance. And now no one directly said, Miranda, I'm very uncomfortable with people shadowing my sessions because it makes me feel a bit too vulnerable. And so I just prefer that you leave me out of the shadowing schedule. No, but I can read in between the lines, and I would notice when that was happening. And I feel very confident that read the situation correctly. And it's not even about the amount of experience or the competence. I noticed that happening with therapists who I thought were wonderful and brilliant, and who I would feel comfortable referring one of my own loved ones to them for therapy. And so there's not a direct correlation with the sense of, oh, no, 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 I'm actually kind of uncomfortable with having people shadow my sessions. I'd rather have that not happen. There's not a direct correlation there to the quality of therapist. It's something else going on there, right? It's something else that is that insecurity that rises up. And then I also luckily had, I'm grateful that I did have people who would step up to the table and allowed themselves to have that vulnerability, and I'd end up having basically my top 3 people that I knew would allow me to put a new therapist to shadow with them all day, any day. Didn't matter. And then it was a little unbalanced, right? And did my best to address that. But the point is to normalize that and to say, this is why I'm drawing that parallel, because even in the world of a therapist having a coworker who's a new employee, to be able to sit and shadow them triggers for a lot of people quite a bit of insecurity and discomfort. So I just wanted to share that, to be able to help out with and bring light and love to the entire situation, because again, this is not something that arises from a shameful place at all. The first, I think most people can agree, The first probably solid 3, if not 5 years of being a therapist, when I supervised individuals in that zone of their career, the main thing is about building up your confidence, your personal style, and understanding who you are as a therapist, right? And where your leanings are. And that includes checking into those spaces of potential bias. And this is just one of those spaces. So asking yourself, what rises up in me and how do I feel when I just think about the notion of having another therapist sit down as my client? Is there any discomfort there? If it is, let me explore that and sit with it and bring it to my own supervision or to a colleague that I respect, love, trust to process that a little bit more so that all these beautiful people that gravitate toward the field of being a therapist with the best intentions so that we are not accidentally contributing to perpetuating these kind of sentiments, because I think you can feel to how to have a therapist sit down and say, are you comfortable working with me because I'm a therapist? Like, I don't want anybody to have to ask that question, right? There's all sorts of ways about that we're like, no, why have we had such a culture that has gotten you to the point of feeling like you have to answer that question as though it's something that's going to push me away from you, or push you away from getting your own beautiful healing therapeutic work.